Hi, I'm Launi with Learn Law for All, and today we are here with Darlene Taylor. And Darlene, I got that right? Because I don't even have your name or anything.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
Okay, so we're here with Darlene Taylor. We're going to talk about intercultural competence for attorneys. And so I'm going to ask her a couple of questions, but a little bit about a background for Darlene is she is a seasoned professional with over 20 years experience in guiding individuals through self-discovery, growth, and education. She holds an MSW from the University of Cincinnati and has served as a licensed social worker and therapist for a decade. Additionally, she was a woman and gender studies professor at the same institution for 12 years. Darlene's expertise extends to fostering diversity and inclusion as a licensed intercultural development inventory, the IDI, which is what we're really talking about today. She's the administrator of that and helping organizations build intercultural competence. And she also is a certified trainer, business trainer, personal trainer, nutritional coach, and emphasizes on holistic well-being. So welcome, Darlene.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So as a background, as I repeat this in every one of them, this is for educational and entertainment purposes only, and we're not giving any advice. I am licensed to practice only in Arizona as an attorney. So watching this video or listening to the podcast does not create an attorney-client relationship with me or a patient therapist patient role with Darlene. So we're just here for the entertainment and educational purposes. So again, thank you for being here.
No problem.
Okay, so I do have some questions. First of all, what is the IDI?
The IDI is the Intercultural Development Inventory, and it is basically an assessment that assesses your level of intercultural competence. And we define intercultural competence as your ability to both shift your perspective and adapt your behavior to cultural differences and commonalities. So it's really what skills do you have to work across differences? That's what intercultural competence is.
Okay, and so we just did a CLE on this, and of course it's a lot more information than what you're going to get here today. But one of the questions that I came up with that we didn't even really touch that much on in the video or in the CLE was, how does intercultural competence connect to bias? Because this is really a big issue.
Right. So when you talk about intercultural competence, the two components of it are a deep cultural self-understanding and a cultural other understanding. So of course, it's about learning to really engage with other cultures that are not like yours in a really deep and meaningful way. But the bigger piece of it is learning what your own cultural lens is and really understanding how your own culture shapes the way that you view things and shapes the way that you move through the world. And in learning that, it really highlights what your biases are. And so once you start to unpack your own culture, you start to see that, there are tons of different biases. There are, the biases, of course, that we sort of, all think of, like gender biases and racial biases, but there are other more, I don't know, like way more subjective biases, like attractiveness bias, what, like it, or, how someone's dressed, if they're dressed a particular way, or if they're a more attractive person, they're going to be treated differently. There's research that says men who are taller get paid more. There's name biases where, that's, when you're looking at someone's name, and if somebody has an ethnic name, you may be making assumptions. And so understanding these different biases helps you to start to see, and question yourself, am I making assumptions about this person based on X, Y, or Z? Or, there's a confirmation bias. If you have an assumption about someone, then you're only looking for information that's going to confirm what you already think about that person. And so just starting to understand what biases are and what your own biases are, help you figure out how you can better connect with and more respectfully connect with not only your colleagues, but your clients.
So, okay, and as part of that, how does it help you connect with your colleagues and clients? We talked about this a lot in the CLE, but talk about how it helps you connect better.
Yeah, I mean, you really, what we as humans want is to be seen, is to be known, is to be understood. And so in an effort to do that, what you really want to do is be able to show someone, to demonstrate to someone that you can understand and relate to them in some ways. You understand that there are some commonalities, but there are these differences. And those differences matter. Those differences impact the way that they experience you and the way that they experience the world. And you want to know about those. When you have an increased intercultural competence, you either have that knowledge or you are open to learning about that knowledge. You're opening to learning about what those differences are and what what matters to clients. And so it improves your relationships because there is that curiosity, because clients feel respected, because clients feel seen. Then you can make these more authentic connections with people. Then you understand what they need from you. You can represent them better, and you understand, how they may be reacting to you, why their reactions to something to you or something that happens in court or something that's said are very different than your reactions. And if you don't understand, you're willing to try to understand. You're willing to have those conversations and ask those questions.
And we did have this conversation in the CLE too, where we were talking about, look, in family court, oftentimes we'll get somebody from a different country who has different ideas of discipline. Some countries have harsher disciplines than than what's legal in the
Right.
United States. And so understanding that that's what it is, but also maybe bringing that information to the judge's perspective. Like, this person wasn't meaning to hurt their child. This is just how they discipline in this
Right.
area. And my client's willing to learn, right? My
Right.
client's willing to learn and stick with the United States discipline requirements,
Right.
just to kind of show that. But knowing that that's a cultural issue could be really important.
Yeah, and not making that assumption. I always give the example of respect. A lot of times, is particularly in the United States, people are like, well, of course that behavior is respectful, or of course that behavior is disrespectful. It's respectful when you meet someone, you shake their hand and you look them in the eye. Well, that's a very cultural thing. That's not necessarily what the expectation is in other cultures. And so if someone doesn't do that, you can't then automatically take that behavior as disrespectful, or take that person as, trying to be disrespectful to you. So it's those kinds of things. And so, yeah, I think that is really important for judges and attorneys and other people like that to understand that, that when we are assessing someone's behavior, we're doing it through our own cultural lens. And what is that telling us? And that may be appropriate, but it also may not be appropriate. And then when you're talking about clients and getting clients to understand that, maybe behavior that is culturally appropriate for them might have legal ramifications also. And so just getting them to understand that's not, I am not saying that behavior is bad, or there's no judgment in my assessment of that behavior, but it is my responsibility to tell you what that behavior will result in if it within this cultural setting. And so being able, so that's an education for your clients as well, that maybe their cultural lens isn't letting them see that either.
I have to say, when we were talking about this in the CLE, I admitted to my judginess. When I have a client who's being hyper vigilant or hyper protective of the kids after maybe they were abused, maybe they were a victim of domestic violence, and now they're very hyper vigilant with their kids, trying to become very overly protective. And where I was saying, that's wrong. It's not necessarily that it was wrong. You put it in great terms. Like, go ahead and say how you discussed it. If you can remember, it was a really great phrase. The way
it's not necessarily that it's wrong, but it might, that it is a function of their experience. And so it is very, very valid. Their experience is valid, and their reasons for feeling that way are valid. Also, that might not get them what they want. So what is the goal? What's the client's goal? If you want to have your kids, if you want to keep custody the same way, while this behavior is completely valid, it may not get you the result that you want. So let's look at what we need to do in order to get you where you want to go. And so just, being able to understand that. But I think the biggest part of it, kind of what you were saying, is to just make sure that your clients don't feel judged by you. And just, and if you don't understand something, ask. That's the most powerful thing that you can do when it comes to growing your intercultural competence, is from a space of humility, ask questions, not from a space of judgment, but from a literal space of humility and curiosity. I want to understand this. I want to understand you. I want to connect with you so that I can do the best job I can for you. So let's talk. Let's talk.
So that's really interesting too, the asking questions. So recently, and we didn't talk about this in the CLE, but recently I did a Facebook poll on if it was okay for me to ask people about their tattoos. I am a zero tattoo person. I grew up thinking that only bikers and scary people had tattoos, and now everybody has tattoos, right? And so trying to understand that, I was like, all right, is it okay if I just start asking people in line if they've got a sleeve of tattoos? Can I ask them what their tattoos mean, or what, if they got them for any particular reason? Because I'm assuming most people have a good reason for their tattoos, right? They're not just getting goofy stuff, though they might get goofy stuff.
Right.
But so I started doing it, and it turned out that people were very happy to tell me about it. It was a very interesting thing. And I think it just helped us become more, I don't know, it maybe just helped me become, I don't think I'm judgy about it. I probably still am a little bit. I mean, that's how I grew up. I was very
Right.
judgy about tattoos.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to hear the stories because they're so much more innocent than the scary things I'd probably thought of.
Right. And I think that's that word judgy. I think none of us want to see ourselves as judgy, but that's what our biases are. They're
Right.
judgment. And so being able to sort of let go, like being able to embrace it. Yeah, there are some things that I'm judgy about, probably because I just don't know, probably because I just don't, I don't have that experience. I think it's awesome that you ask those questions. And I think that goes back to, people want to be seen, people want to be understood, people want to be known. Right. And so, I've had people, I have a few tattoos, and I love when people ask me about mine because I feel like, oh, this person really is like interested in me and interested in understanding me, because like you said, most of the time they have meaning. And so when you ask somebody about something that is a part of who they are, you're asking to know them a little bit more. And I think for most people that feels really affirming, and that's what we want. We want people that feels like, okay, this person thinks that I have enough value that they want to know this about me. And that's a really cool space to be. So
Okay, well, thank you so much. For anyone who wants to learn more about the IDI and kind of where you stand in it, please check out our CLE. Also, Darlene's information will be linked below. She also has a book, not about IDI, but about parenting. So that will be linked below, and as will her contact information. So if right now you give these classes to, and I guess they're not classes, they're assessments,
yeah.
evaluations.
Usually I'm contracted with, like, I've done them with teachers, with, law firms, with different organizations. So yeah, usually a business contacts me and we will do the assessment with everyone in that business, and they'll get their individual results, and then we'll do group results as far as like how the group stands when it comes to intercultural competence. And that's really interesting. But I'm also able to do it just one-on-one if people just want to know sort of where they stand. So they would take the assessment, and then we would sit down and have an hour-long debrief about their IDI results and what that means for them and how they can use those results to grow and continue to increase their intercultural competence.
Well, that it's so interesting that you said that. Real quick, I'm looking over here at this, there was she gave a graphic that was an arrow and tells you kind of where you're at. And so I just, kind of just had a little laugh to myself when you were saying that you do it as a business, as like the whole group. Do some of those people come in total denial, and then some come in adaptation, and then how do they get along?
That's the interesting part, particularly like in a school. So you take this and you see that there are some teachers who have a developmental orientation, on one side of the continuum, and some that are on the other. And so that's the conversation. So what does that mean for our students and families? What does that mean for us as a school? How are we presenting as a school? And what that means is that depending on who people interact with, they may have a totally different experience. And is that what we want for our school? No, we want to all get on the same page, but we first have to understand that we're not all on the same page, because that's the assumption, is oftentimes that, well, yeah, we all kind of feel the same way about it, and this is the way that we're presenting, when that very well may not be the case. So yeah, it's really interesting. Obviously, it's better in an organization if everyone kind of has a similar developmental orientation, but that's oftentimes not what's happening.
Yeah, interesting. I had my little laugh myself, because I can imagine at a school.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of different personalities in schools, from the
Right.
principal to, the janitor. All those
Right.
people could have totally different experiences,
Yep.
cultural backgrounds,
Right.
everything.
Yeah.
Well, interesting. Well, thank you again so much for being here. I appreciate it.
No problem.
And we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks.
Bye-bye.